A little bit about me, for those of you guys who don't know, Blake Burnard. I own Grindhaus Strength and Conditioning in Bakersfield, California. I played 5 years of college football at a high level and came home, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think context is important when you're listening to any coach speak, just with most things in life. You know, California's a lot different than here. My story's a lot different than everybody else's in here. And so a lot of what I say today comes from a background, actually a pretty shallow background of strength and conditioning coaching. That was always a thing that I enjoyed doing as an athlete. I took it a lot more seriously. I was that weight room warrior as a player, you know, and just kind of was able to manhandle guys with athletic ability that was forged over time, wasn't really born with. I really appreciated, you know, breaking records and the training aspect of it in the off season. But my professional career actually started as a teacher. So I am a high school English teacher. I teach 9th and 10th grade English at Highland High School in Bakersfield. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to say today, they come from an extensive background with kids. Okay, not so much the strength and conditioning side of things, although that's something I've always studied, it's something I've always enjoyed. I take a very practical approach to what we do in the weight room because I like to believe that my expertise lies in, you know, dealing with people and understanding my audience and knowing how to get the most out of them, you know, with different backgrounds and different experiences in the weight room and things like that, you know. So we'll touch on that a little bit. I told him when he asked me what I wanted to speak about, I said, shit, man, I don't know. He goes, I said, who else is talking? And he said, Bird, Mike, Jared, and Don. And I go, what am I going to say that they're not? They haven't heard before, right? You know? And so thinking about it, the first thing that that stood out to me, I was like, well, what does Grindhaus do well? What do we do well at our gym? Well, we're super young. I'm not gonna leave it up to the internet to, you know, prove me a liar saying that like we've been in business for a number of years. We've only been in the current facility that we're in since March. Not even that. April. We started right when the coronavirus thing happened, and gyms were shutting down. We were opening up. Okay. So very young in that respect. I have been coaching as a strength coach since last January. So still very much in my infancy. Okay, I am not going to be the guy to tell you that I'm a guru in anything, and I don't want to be completely honest with you, because the minute I start saying that I know anything, I'm going to start closing my ears to what other people have to say. Okay, so again, as an educator, I want to be a lifelong learner. I'm here to take notes from you guys mostly, and I get to say something along the way. But talking about, you know, what our gym is good at, we're really good at we're good at the X's and O's too. We put 5 to 7 inches on our kids' verticals. Our females do that in 8 weeks. My males typically put on 5 inches and 10, but that's because they're a little bit more active than my girls coming into it. They're a little bit more experienced as lifters, so they don't get those newbie gains as much. But you know, we do it in the weight room, but we also do it in the extracurricular stuff that happens behind closed doors in my office, developing these kids as human beings as well. So I'm going to close with that, but I'm going to give you guys probably the most conjugated presentation, 30-minute presentation you guys have seen, because I'm going to touch on a lot of stuff very quickly. Okay, and I'm going to open this thing up like I would my classroom. I run my class like a university. If you have questions, don't be afraid to raise your hand, right? And we'll pause and answer those. So, let's see. And this is to make sure I land that plane, okay? Because if I don't, I'm so ADHD. That's why I got to stand up here. I get the jitters. It just won't happen, okay? And that plane will land somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, all right? So, here's the thing. I got my degree in communications. I'm working on my master's in critical thinking. I think that says enough about me, right? I really like people, and I really like educating them on why we do what we do. And that makes me a better coach in turn. Being able to explain and disseminate high-level knowledge and information at a very basic, simplistic way. Okay? That is what I think defines a great teacher and a great coach. Okay? And again, I haven't been coaching for a long time. Was a sports coach, now I'm a strength coach. But the 3 years, my third year in the classroom, I've accrued as many hours as a lot of the coaches have in front of their kids over a span of 10 years. So it accelerated my development because I had to understand my audience, the kids that I'm dealing with, to get the most out of them. And especially right now, I'll tell you right now, speaking to a bunch of faces and being in front of other people, this is so nice because California's still shut down. I spend every day speaking for 5 straight hours to a bunch of black Zoom screens, okay? It's brutal, it's infuriating. This is such a breath of fresh air. That's why I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, it's crazy out there right now. I think that the thing that I want to start with today is training young kids. Okay, and Jared touched on it a bit. I hope I don't do too much regurgitating of what he's already said. I'm gonna try not to. I'm gonna give you a full breakdown of what we do with our young kids. He was right. There's not enough data out there circulating the interwebs or textbooks about how to train and use a conjugate approach with the youngins. And by youngins, I'm talking about like true beginners, okay? Kids that have not hit puberty or are just in the beginning stages of that. So we're looking at like 10 to 13-year-olds, okay? That's most of my young kids that stay in our program the longest, that's when they start, okay? That's like middle school. Body's going through a lot of changes there. The reason why we don't have a lot of literature on this demographic is actually the same reason why I've got a pregnant wife at home. She's terribly sick. She deals with this. She has this condition where every time she births a child, her body like pushes back against that. She spends 9 months over a toilet puking every single day, not just the first trimester, okay? She's like in the 1% or the 0.5% of women that go through this. And so we've gone through the process of trying to get try what medications work and all those things to try to get her out of this really awful situation. The problem is no doctor wants to prescribe a pregnant woman anything because there isn't enough literature and studies being done on these young kids. How many parents you know that want to offer up their baby to be a lab rat in the States? It's not happening here, right? The same is true for strength and conditioning, okay? So there's very limited things. You really have to learn these secondhand from coaches that have done it, that are in the trenches, that have, guys like Jared, right? Michael's done the exact same thing with younger athletes, okay? So these ideas are not my own. And I want to make it very clear, you guys are probably going to hear me say a lot about the guys that I've learned from. I hope that you guys hear my heart in this. I will never plagiarize what someone else has worked hard to put out there. In our industry, thank God I can vouch for everybody in this room, that you guys give credit where credit is due, but there are some people who do not. And this is the English teacher coming out of me, and I'm going to get really serious. Never plagiarize someone else's work that they've spent hours of their life and tons of money to develop and call it your own. Okay? That's something I take very seriously. So I shout out everybody that's told me these things, and a lot of them are here today. So, training young athletes. Okay? Training young athletes. It starts with, I'm just going to break it down how we do our sessions, okay? Most people are concerned with the max effort type stuff. I keep my max effort work in higher rep ranges, okay? It is all sub-maximal, but the key is I am trying to get my kids comfortable under a bar. I get a lot of kids who have never done this stuff before, okay? And so it looks like a dog shitting razor blades whenever you try to put a barbell on their back, or if you try to get them performing a correct sumo deadlift, especially with my girls. My populations, my athlete populations, female and male, are very heavy fall sport dominant. They are volleyball players and football. So just understand, that's who I'm working with. These volleyball players, when I get them in there, they say, oh yeah, I've been in a weight room before. And when I first started, I gave them way too much benefit of the doubt. I thought they were actually training. They were not. They could not lift, okay? And I've had to teach them from the ground up. I actually had to go backwards initially because I tried too much too fast and just taking it for granted they knew what they were doing. So I'm really big on getting the kids comfortable. If they're comfortable, you're going to get more out of them and they're going to enjoy it more because they're not afraid of that bar, okay? So I look at it from a frequency standpoint. If we're looking at it from this lens of like, I'm trying to get as many repeated efforts as I can to try to ingrain these motor patterns in their head and really get their body comfortable under a bar to the point where they are not stressed out by it. How many of you guys have ever seen a girl stressed out by the bar? it's awful. They start crying, they get stressed out, anxiety ridden. I don't want that in my gym. So the very first thing is I try to get them to the barbell as quickly as possible, but in a way that's safe, in a way that's responsible, because that's my duty as a coach, okay? When we do max out, we usually keep it very sub-maximal. We'll go as high as 6 reps initially, but once they're past that first month of the barbell, we keep it all in the brief maximal tension method. That is something that Jared talks about a lot. If you look in super training, it says anything 85% and above is brief maximal tension. And it does great stuff to get that extra volume in. We ratchet down the repetitions, but more sets. You throw higher reps at a young kid, it starts looking like garbage really quick as they start to fatigue, as the fatigue that Jared was talking about starts to set in. Okay? I don't feel comfortable with some of my kids doing that when they can't keep a good arch, when they can't keep their shoulder blades back down in their back pockets, right? So I like keeping the reps lower, but we do a ton of sets, okay? So if we're talking about staying between 80 and 90%, we're doing 4 sets of 5, 5 sets of 4, 6 sets of 3, and so on and so forth, okay? And some kids respond to more, some kids respond to less. I can't even tell you that I have a formula for that yet. I just don't, okay? But it's mainly a feel thing and how it looks, all right? So I really appreciate that. The max effort stuff, at least initially, they're not going to get anything from you're not seeking a CNS response because they can't even access that part of their brain to push and strain in that way. Oftentimes, they shut down before they even get a sign of strain. I can't even get them to try to strain to get a bar off the ground. It's just glued down there, okay? So I like keeping it under those max effort percentages, under 90%, so that we can really teach that and teach it at a slow enough pace that they feel comfortable with it, okay? For our dynamic effort stuff, we actually do a lot more. We do a lot more of the brief maximal tension. But how we get there is a little bit different. Instead of using straight weight, I like to speed things up by using a percentage of straight weight, but then we use bands or chains to get them to that 85%. Okay? My guy Brandon, he had a lot more experience with that, but he turned me on to the super heavy stuff with bands, and what I like about that is it doesn't beat the body up as much. We're able to get more frequency in, and the kids are able to move it faster. Like I said, they don't have it up here to be able to strain through hard fives like I can, like Jared can, like Khalil can, right? We can grind those things out, but they're shut down. So if I want high quality reps and I want them to finish their sets, I prefer using accommodating resistance to get to that magical percentage, okay? And what it does is that increases rate of force development. Mel Sif talks about the more sets with less reps, they're getting more frequent exposures to moving that bar quickly. You can put 30% on a bar, and a kid doesn't know how to move fast until you teach them. We recently got tendos, and it was an absolute game changer for my gym. I didn't buy them so that I could auto-regulate and change kids on a daily basis, although I think that is important. You're able to see patterns over time. I have too many kids. We have 110 total athletes, both high school and college, that come to our facility, and it's a crazy house most of the time, and so I don't always have the luxury of tracking every single kid. I usually pay more attention to the more advanced ones who need that kind of stuff and need those accommodations to be made to the program. But I bought it more as a teaching tool, to teach a kid to move fast and then take it away and see what happens, okay? So that being said, our dynamic effort stuff, we keep it simple. We keep it practical with our young kids. I see too many of these coaches, especially the conjugate coaches. Some people think it's an oversimplified definition to say that conjugate is just switching bars and just changing the variations. I absolutely hate hearing that. It's so much more complex than that. And we got to give credit where credit's due. The Russians were freaking smart. That was not conjugate for them. It was not rotating bars, okay? So we know that we can get awesome adaptations from our kids with using the straight bar as absolutely long as we possibly can. I want to suck that thing dry for everything it's worth before throwing something else at them. Again, going back to the confidence thing, I want them to know and feel familiar with that bar before we ever even think about using an SSB or anything. I love the SSB. I love the Cambridge bar. I love seeing a bunch of them here. I think they develop a lot of awesome qualities, but I don't want to blow my load with these athletes in the first 6 months. Okay? Understand how long I have them for. I don't work at a university. I don't have these kids for 3 to 4 years. I may get them for, sometimes I feel lucky if I have them for 6 months. We have an incredibly high retention rate at my gym for a lot of different reasons, I believe. But you guys know. Sometimes you just got a kid that, they tell you the first day, I'm just doing this until baseball season. I'm just doing this for 3 months. And I go, okay, that's enough to get these results. But most of my kids, we don't market, we don't do any of that stuff. All of it's referral based. These kids are here to stay for the most part. So if I know that I can get them for, 2-3 years, I think it's my duty as a coach to not only take care of them in the here and now, but to also, it's my responsibility to send them off to wherever their high school or college is, knowing how to front squat, free squat, go ass to grass with great mobility, take care of their ankles, all these things, right? If I start them on a box in their first week, is it going to improve their 40 faster? Absolutely. Is it going to improve their jumps better? Yeah, absolutely. Is that better carryover? Yep. But sometimes we have to set our eyes on actually developing the athlete and the person before driving that performance, right? And if I'm their first strength coach, I'm going to make sure I do it right, okay? Now, like Jared said, if they're doing that at school, and that checks a box for me, I'm giddy about it, so I'll put them on a box. We'll vary it a little bit more. But we need to make sure the basics are taken care of before moving on, okay? The other thing is these kids adapted at such a high rate, you don't need that variation. In fact, I've actually seen the opposite. I see so much less positive progress. I see so much less progress in my less experienced athletes when we use more variation. Is it cool? Yeah. Does it look great for the gram? Absolutely, okay? People love seeing an 8-year-old with an SSB on their back, but they don't need it, and typically I want to make it as simple as possible because those kids are squirrels, and I got to control them for as long as I can, It's like reeling in, it's like herding cats, and it's freaking nuts. So I try to keep it super simple so that they're comfortable, and I was telling Khalil this the other day, we try to make every kid a coach. So if I can get them comfortable enough to be able to pick apart their own form at 11, 12 years old, best believe they will do that to the new kid, and then I don't have to be there. So when I ask how many coaches are in the room, and I'm not saying I'm hiding in my office, I'm around, but again, I'm super ADHD, I'm taking care of all these kids at once. If I ask the kids how many coaches are in this room, they all raise their hands. Because I feel like it's my responsibility to not only train, but also to educate. Okay, I try to prepare them to be coaches, at least to an extent, with their buddies as well, so that I'm not around, someone's not dying. Okay, so that would be, we use the KISS method, we keep it simple all the time. I'm also trying to be practical. Okay, my weight room is not perfect, and the day I stopped worrying about perfection in my weight room, my quality of life went through the roof. It kept me fresher as a coach. I didn't dread certain groups, right? It's just chaotic. It's a chaotic environment. I got all these kids at all different ages. In some cases, there are 10-year age gaps. The kids feel it when I'm stressed. Okay, when the coach is a little overwhelmed, that rubs off on the kids. And so I want to be, I feel the weight of responsibility to give them what they're paying me, absolutely. But at a certain point, we have to understand that anything's better than nothing. This is still better training than they're getting from their school, without a shadow of a doubt, or what they could get in their garage with their dad or at a Globo gym or whatever. And we have to stop worrying about the X's and O's with these young kids because they're going to adapt to everything. It doesn't matter really what you throw at them. Okay? Obviously, we need to do our due diligence to give them the best damn program possible. But to an extent, when they don't contrast what I want them to properly, or they screw up their rest times or whatever, I just kind of stop letting that bother me. And it's really helped me develop as a coach, just simply kind of letting it ride. You know what I mean? Because you're dealing with these kids, it's just fun to them. And you want to make it fun, you want to keep it fun. Still hold them accountable for each other's safety and stuff like that and their own performance. But I mean, I don't sweat the small stuff anymore, I would say. Okay? As long as the effort's there, the biggest thing I want to push with my young athletes is intention. The sooner they can get intention and moving the barbell fast and learning how to train and not work out, I've already done them a much bigger service than any of their other coaches in their athletic career will. I truly believe that. So, let's see. So with our accessories, we use I really tend to, I like to increase sets. I flat load the reps. I like to increase sets. We might start low, but we build it up to 5-6 sets over the course of 3-4 weeks. Okay, so we might start like week 1, 3 sets of 10, 4 sets of 10, 5 sets of 10. And I really like that because I build their work capacity at the same time. Not only are they getting those repeated exposures, it keeps the weight a little bit lighter as well. I really like that. But I make sure that they know, with my young kids, they recover from everything. I tell them to go to fatigue. I don't tell my older kids to do that. But I tell them to fail at about rep 9 or 10. And we've had tremendous results doing it this way. You have to understand these young kids adapt so quick. You could literally, pound them with a sledgehammer, and they'd show up ready for more the next day. These kids adapt to everything. So we can't be afraid to do hard things. That's why I'm not afraid of max effort and stuff like that with my younger kids. I'm more concerned with their comfortability and their technique before going to those things. So we try to get them to the lower stuff as soon as possible, but I mean, gosh, I just want to keep them moving more often than not, because they get in trouble when they have extended rest breaks and nothing to do. So, again, herding cats. It's crazy. The max effort stuff, I forgot to say this, we do supplemental lifts in our gym a lot. So where we don't get the volume, so to speak, on the max effort stuff, I really like dropping the percentages. We'll do drop down sets. I use much lower percentages with my younger kids than I do my older ones. Because again, we're looking for frequency of repetition. Okay, this is something I got from Poliquin. He said it's not about quantity, it's about frequency when you're talking about motor learning. Okay, so when you're trying to get a kid to train a new movement pattern, I want it to be quality reps. But if you move your drop down sets to the end of the workout instead of right after the core lift, the body thinks it's a brand new workout. And all of a sudden, most of my kids are on a 4-day split, so they do lower on Monday, upper on Tuesday, lower again on Thursday, upper on Friday. So I get 2 days of each of those body part splits, okay? And I'd like to get them to 3 or 4 with these young kids. So how I combat that is I move their down sets to the end of the workout. So before they do their sleds or whatever the GPP is, whatever that may be, they will finish with, like, let's say they work up to a 5-rep max on their bench work. Well, we might do 4 sets of 10 at 40 to 45% on a given day, but we don't do that till the end because the body doesn't know the difference between that and doing it the very next day. Okay? Not only are the reps cleaner, but they're also getting a lot more of them at they don't look like shit, to be honest with you guys. And typically I find that they're able to do higher percentages. They're a little bit fresher coming back to it, right? So I really enjoy doing those at the end. The body, how it adapts, it's like you have to learn it, forget some things, and then learn it again. So that's what I'm attacking with separating them by 30, 45 minutes in their session, okay? It turns into, in my mind, I'm looking at it like they get 4 exposures to that one lift over the course of the week instead of just 2 because of the 2 days. Okay, so that's kind of how I work around it. We've seen tremendous results with that. With my female young athletes, though, they do more of a 5-3-1 split. That's from Jim Wendler. I think it's so simple, and at least at first, I'm trying to get them to enjoy and want the barbell. I have found that they need We use a couple different variations that Jim goes over, and again, I mean, I'm not a system guy. I've just found that they really like it, to be honest with you. They like the AMRAP sets. They like the knowing exactly what they're doing. When I tell my females to go based off feel, it all goes to hell. Okay, so I do not find that I get the same kind of intent behind what they're doing because they're thinking they don't know what anything over 90% feels like yet. And typically their nervous system isn't as developed as my men's or as my male athletes. They shut down way faster anyways. Okay, so I want to keep those loads lower than usual. We do use training maxes. We don't do the 90% like he says, but we do moderate it to keep quality very, very high and get them enjoying their workouts and knowing exactly what they're doing. The less I can get my females to think, the better. How many of you guys ever asked your wife where she wants to eat that night? Yeah, okay? It's not just wives. It's also these 10-year-olds, right? So I don't want them thinking. I just want them doing. They're my little soldiers, and I love training females because they'll go to war for you. But you gotta tell them what to do more. Okay, so our accessories, we do the typical stuff. I'm not going to say anything novel there. I would say that the younger they are, the more posterior chain we're hitting, and the more GPP focused it is, okay? So we do a ton of sleds, but I also use that opportunity to get really weird and wacky with my kids. I like strongman stuff for them. I want them moving. I want them moving in space. I want them actually training their body in a way that builds coordination and certain qualities that are going to carry over to the field of play in a more indirect way. In my own football career, the best athletes I ever played with were also, they played other sports. The best ones were basketball players and wrestlers, okay? And what do those two sports do really well? Well, they do things that football doesn't. Okay, those kids were free of injury, and ultimately they're the freakiest kids that I ever played with. So that was something I learned. I had the wherewithal to get through my entire playing career and wish that I could go back to do those things, even though I might not have been the best. Just practicing the sports would have made me a better football player. But if my kids in California, we got a lot of kids that want to specialize. Dads. There are parents in California preemptively getting their kids to go through the Tommy John's procedure, expecting it 4 years later. That's the craziness we're dealing with, okay? So if they're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. I have them doing weird gymnastic stuff, all sorts of stuff, and ultimately it keeps them moving. They're going to fit in their accessories usually with that. We do supersets, giant sets, ultra sets, which is like 4 or 5 different exercises, right? Again, it doesn't really matter, and you can't teach a kid to do their accessories super hard at first, at least. I'm just trying to get them comfortable and enjoy it, okay? So sometimes you have to deal with the psychology of a kid. You just want to buy in immediately, okay? And sometimes doing that, just keep it fun, keep it varied, and keep it more GPP focused. So we use a lot of strongman stuff. I don't have any yokes, but we do weighted carries till the cows come home, sleds, balls, kettlebells, all that weird stuff. Things that I would never do with my older kids to be quite frank with you guys, but that I know it will build a wider base for those kids down the road. We need to, with my young kids, I'm focused on building that foundation more than anything. And I'm not talking about spending too much time on mobility and opening hips, prying hips and opening ankles and doing T-spine mobs and weird stuff like that, and like being afraid to put them under a heavy barbell. I don't want to waste time. It says on my Instagram, it is a no bullshit training facility. I don't want to waste time because those parents are paying me money to get their kid from point A to point B as fast as possible. That's the difference between being a coach, a strength and conditioning coach, and a trainer. Okay? I'm not sucking them for more sessions. I want them to get out of my gym and onto the real, go excel as fast as possible. Okay? That's my duty to them. I take that very, very seriously. Okay, so I don't box squat my young athletes either. I kind of hit it. I touched on this earlier. We free squat. Sometimes, depending on what their back looks like, we'll front squat them, but I don't front squat them with like a traditional Olympic lift. We front squat with the SSBs because it's easier for them. They don't have to focus on as much, okay? They can keep their elbows higher, keep them in good mobility, and it forces them to stay in a good position for longer. Okay, so if we have to train that, I'll start them on the front squat with an SSB. If they're good, if they can hold that position, if they're very mobile, maybe they already have a pre-existing base of GPP from sports or whatever, we'll put them under the bar as soon as their rex abdominis, their obliques, and their lower back are all up to par. And some kids show up that way, some kids don't. We goblet squat them until they're good, and then we get them under there as quickly as possible. With their jumps and their running, we use, I got this from Bird, he got it from Charlie Francis. We use a high-low model. Because when I first started doing this, I wanted to run them, again, frequency of exposures. I wanted to run and jump them every single day, thinking that would be better. The problem was, not only was it chaotic, 30 to 40 athletes in 4,000 square feet gets nuts, okay? And I wanted to kind of break up the schedule of my kids while also making sure they're able to recover. And this had more of the older kids in mind. But I want them to do the most CNS taxing things on the fewest days possible during the week. That way, if I fit my running and my jumping into my lower body days, for sure they have 5 days to recover. Not only that, I got a lot of club sport athletes. So my volleyball girls, it's nuts out in California. They play year round. They play year round, and so we have to schedule things around that. And typically, reducing it to the fewest amount of days is the best way. Okay, we flat load our jumps. We flat load our running as well. Okay, I don't do a lot of contrast runs with my kids. Well, I like to keep the volume very, very low when they're in their club sport or in season, but I believe, with running, if you're not using it, you are absolutely losing it. My jumps, I don't weight them a ton. We've seen tremendous success for our youngins simply from, their adaptation to the barbell. I don't need to do a ton of weighted jumps with them. We do it on occasion. They enjoy putting on the ankle weights in the vest, so I let them do that. I also believe that helps with turnover in their sprint. A lot of them have super slow feet. We do a ton of hurdles, because I get kids you think there's concrete in their shoes. One of the best things I can do for those guys is increase their reactivity on the ground. Okay, so we do a lot more of that stuff with our younger athletes than our older ones. And then I think that, I forgot to mention this about our max effort work. I opt for chains before bands with my younger kids. And I don't remember where I got this. Again, I did not come up with this. I use chains to slow things down and bands to speed things up. I don't want to play my trump card until I need to. Okay? So I save bands for when they're getting into camp and when they're reporting to school, or they're coming up on their most important session of the competition of the year. That's when I want them to be their fast. That's when I want them to be their most explosive. But until then, I'm teaching them how to strain. And I like chains for that. It's a little easier on the joints. A lot of my kids, again, taller volleyball players, big football players, dealing with osgood slaughters, knee valgus. They're just so awkward, and they have joint pain because they're growing. Got to make it somewhat enjoyable to them. I've found that the bands kind of wear on their knees a little bit, even the younger athletes. I think it's a growing thing more than anything. Okay, it's not like power lifter kind of wear and tear on the knees. It's like I just don't want to irritate it any more than they have to. I don't want to make a kid cry if I don't have to. Their parents may understand it, but I don't want to have to explain it, Yeah, I'm looking at you, Jared. Yeah. So I like chains for slowing things down. They seem to like it too. They all feel badass, and they like it. So chains, they feel like Bane from Batman. We got a lot of jokes about that. My intermediate females, when they're like those late beginning stages, going into that intermediate stage, and again, we're looking at like 6 to 12 months here of training age. I really, really, really like rotating the bar every 4 to 8 weeks, and that really depends on the girl. Okay. Most of my female athletes, late junior high age, early high school, what kind of personality do you guys think they have? Mom in the back shook her head. They're a little introverted. I don't know what you were thinking about shaking your head, but they're not as, my boys are squirrels, okay? They'll freaking talk to a fence post all day. But my girls are a little bit more reserved. They're there because their dad wants them there. They're there because their brother goes there, whatever. With my introverts, I try to keep them on the same thing for longer, and they appreciate that. They don't like change. They need that comfort a little bit more. Okay, my extroverts will change it up more frequently. I still wave them typically, but it'll be, we might do 2 consecutive waves with the introvert, whereas we might just do 1 wave, same bar with the extrovert. Okay, and again, it's just added practice with those things. Once they're proficient, though, we start moving to those 3-2-1s, okay? Again, most of my kids don't understand if you slow down, you go down. And no matter how many times I'd say it's on blue in the face, they don't know how to, they can't wrap their head around moving a heavy weight quickly, okay? So that just comes with maturity. I've found that it just comes with getting comfortable under the barbell. And I really still don't neglect anything. I don't believe that, one way is the only way of doing things. I'm trying new things all the time because I'm so young. Again, in my infancy of coaching, my programs change every every 8 weeks. My programming changes. I change 1 or 2 variables in a major way. Okay, and I keep it there. I keep it simple because just like when you're throwing max effort variations at a kid who probably doesn't need a ton of variation until maybe their junior, senior year of high school, depending on how long they've been with you, how long they've been lifting, you'll never know what's getting your kids better. Everybody in this room can agree. We all test. That's the cool thing about what we do. I take a lot of pride in my ability to test and prove my results over the guy down the street. That's why we're really good at what we do. Okay, one of those. But as a coach, you have to be able to look at your programming and know where these things came from. Okay, the adaptation you saw, if this kid went up 3 inches in their vertical in 6 weeks, and this kid went up 1, why did that happen? What did you change? How could this one have responded different than the other one? Too many young conjugate coaches want to throw too much variation in there to be cool, to keep it interesting, more often than not projecting their own ADHD personality on their kids who don't need as much. Okay? And they try to be the guy and make it sound like they understand why they're doing this stuff when really they just like conjugate because it's a lazy way of not programming long term. Think about that one for a second. Okay? Don't be that coach that just wants to throw in variation for the sake of variation. It can be detrimental to your kids in the long run. Okay? Now that being said, I vary things very, very often with my varsity football kids, okay? They soak it up because I got lifelong meatheads that started lifting in the Globo gym in the 6th grade with their dad or whatever, and they absolutely soak up every bit of it. They love it, they enjoy it, they react to it. My girls see much less progress from that. And so, again, still accruing data on this, but I want to get those guys more to a one-to-one thing so that we can, I just need more data, to be completely honest with you. I'm still young, and I'm trying to figure out, I operate a lot on templates, to be completely honest with you. Again, tons of kids. How can we make my gym as efficient as possible to make sure that these kids are getting the coaching that I preach to them as the best in town, right? If it looks like I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, then they probably will too. And I don't want kids leaving because they weren't getting the attention they were supposed to, okay? I don't know where I was going with that, guys. I'm so sorry. I gotta land this plane. Okay, so my boys use more variation than my girls. And again, that deals with personality type. Although I do have a couple introverted guys that I stick them on 1 bar for longer. When we're running and jumping, we flat load everything. And the older they get, the more variation they get. But I really don't individualize. I was talking about templates. I really don't individualize things until they start plateauing. It's really, I'm so sorry, Jared. This is about to be blasphemous. I'm sorry, dude. I really don't individualize their programming until they have stopped adapting to what serves the majority. Does that make sense? So 1 by 1, I start moving them all into individual programs, and by then I know exactly what they'll react to because the variation we do use is rotating I don't want to call it block. But we do use periods of higher intensity and higher volume, and by then I can look back at the last 2-3 months and see, okay, they did much better this month than they did that one. I'm going to start here with their individual stuff. Okay? So it's kind of a way of backwards mapping how to get there, right? Not sweating the small stuff until I need to. Okay? One thing that's been really beneficial for me that I learned from Brandon is being able to diagnose and break down not only sprinting technique, that's complicated. I'm not the track guy I want to be, but not there yet. The jumping is a lot easier to diagnose because if you record them from the side, you can see what they're weak at, and you can diagnose and address it with a prescription immediately. Okay, that's what we're working on. That's what we were talking about earlier, is how do we deal with a kid who spins too low in the bottom of their vertical jump. That amortization phase is longer. They're slow in that position. What's the best way to attack it? Well, we've been using a lot of low isometrics, okay? Pin pulls, not pin pulls, pin pulls into the pin, right? We do a lot of working through their sticking point with isos. I'm excited to get back and use heavier dumbbell jumps, which is what Jared was talking to me about. I'm really open with what I'm excited to change about my programming too, because I don't have it all together. I don't mess around with a lot of eccentric stuff, but I'm going to start using it a little bit more with the kids who struggle with the control of going down. Typically, that's my girls. So addressing their deficiencies there, I do a lot of film study. I like watching my kids play their sport as well, because there's a lot to be gained from film study of their games also. My girls, I'm only able to do it with my girls right now who are in club, because everything else is shut down. And the cool thing about that is I see them jumping in a chaotic environment, and I can see what their knees are doing, and I can see what they suck at, in their sport, not loaded. So we can begin to kind of correct that stuff as well. And that kind of, that kind of sums up my training stuff. I'll be honest with you guys. I put a lot of, I don't have a single certification in my name. Not a single one, and I don't want it, to be honest with you. Again, the minute I start pigeonholing myself into one way of thinking or learning from one person or putting too much emphasis on what one person has to say, that's the minute that I'll start closing my ears to probably whoever they don't listen to. If they said this guy's trash, I'm going to say that guy's trash, right? I don't want a certification. I don't want a governing body to tell me what's right and what's wrong. I want to learn it from myself. And ultimately, I think that's going to make me a better coach in the long run. It has to this point. Because I've been blessed to have built relationships with awesome coaches like the guys in this room and the ones that are on Zoom. You surround yourself with the right people, it'll advance your growth faster than any weekend piece of paper would. I'm really big on if I can't explain it to someone on a napkin, I don't teach it to my kids. No acronyms, I don't allow any words over 4 syllables in my gym to come out of my mouth, right? I don't believe that someone else said this again, this was not me, but if you can't write on a napkin, give it to a waitress and explain whatever your theory is to them, you probably don't understand it well enough yourself. Okay? So I don't roll anything out until I understand it that way. And that may slow my development in the long run, but it's something that, we talk about buy-in with our athletes. And this is what I was going to spend my whole talk speaking about initially. But I ended up changing course because I know that coaches are here to learn about the X's and O's and to learn about, what we're doing to produce freaks, right? That stuff's fun, but ultimately, all the stuff I just told you about my programming for our young kids, and it's different for the intermediates and the advanced kids, none of that means shit. If you don't know kids, or if you don't love children, this is going to be the teacher coming out at me, and this is what I'm going to end with. I'm going to bring things down for a second because the Lord put it on my heart that this is what we needed to talk about today. And I don't know that I got responsibility to you guys. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I didn't want to talk about, all this and disappoint anybody by not talking about X's and O's. But we're right now, our country is in a really weird spot. Our kids are being raised in broken homes, without father figures, some without mothers. They have giant gaping holes in their lives, and people wonder why there's so much civil unrest, so much violence in the streets, and so much poverty, and just like drug addiction, and all these things that we can. We have the ability to change as strength coaches. We can make an impact on those things. I hold that weight of responsibility with me at the valuable time that I get with my athletes every single day that I walk through my doors. I get to see these kids. A lot of you guys, you may coach your kids in the morning, and then you lose them from 8 to 3 every day. Well, that's when I get them. I spend 12 hours in front of kids every single day, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, they need strong male and strong female characters in their lives to show them not only how to be a great athlete, but also how to be an upstanding individual, one with integrity, one with hard work. The barbell teaches lessons you guys know that no amount of people could ever preach to these kids or could ever get them to buy into. The barbell's the same weight every single day they show up. But instead of talking about how soft this generation is, or how lazy they are, and getting all hung up on how this generation is different than 10 years ago and all that, let's take a second to look at the context of our nation and understand why they're that way, and how to change how we coach to better reach those kids. I don't have 110, 115 athletes in my door and since March because we marketed our butts off. We haven't paid a dime to that. I don't have that many kids in there because we get awesome results. Jared and I were talking about it yesterday. Kids don't care about results. They just don't. You can take 0.4 of a second off their 40 in 3 months, and they may leave the next month just because they want to work out with their buddy at their local Globo gym. It's not about that. When I was thinking about what I'm going to talk about, what Grindhaus does differently, and the thing that's really on my heart, one of the pillars of our model of success, is it's loving on our kids. And showing them they're appreciated, they have a place with us, they have a tribe with us, they have a family with us. And no matter what the hell's going on at home, my place is going to be a sanctuary for those kids and a place where they can escape that. Don't take even your high-income kids, the ones the moms drive the Mercedes and all that kind of stuff, don't take them for granted like they don't deal with that either. They all have their own issues. Put yourself in their shoes. They're dealing with things that you wouldn't even think about in a million years, unless you're Jared's age. Maybe he's a million years removed from that, But seriously, don't become so disconnected from your youth that you start to buy into all the things you hear older people say about younger generations. The minute you start doing that will be the minute you stop being effective, not only as a strength coach, but as a leader of men. Okay? Now, this is not theory. This is not just my personal conviction. This is something I learned about in school. One thing that carried with me from minoring in psychology was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You guys heard about this? It's like a triangle. Okay? Now, I don't want to butcher this, so I drew it for you guys. Okay? Up here at the top, the peak. Okay, and again, this is in increasing importance. Obviously, the larger base is more important. That makes up more of the child's security than does the peak. Guess what's at the peak? What did we just say they don't care about? Huh? Results. Self-actualization's at the top. That's reaching your ultimate potential as an athlete. Okay, for us, that's them getting to college. Okay, that's them getting to the pros. Whatever they think the peak of their ability is, that's getting them there. Yes, it's important. It is not most important, no matter what way you slice it. Okay, right underneath that is it self-esteem. That's prestige, a sense of feeling of prestige and accomplishment. That's hitting PRs on a daily basis. That's being a workout warrior. That's loving being in the gym every day and training in season, off season. Okay. That's a really cool one that we get for our kids without even trying, right? The next one is belongingness. That's their need for love, okay? And this is the middle tier. We're the ones below it are more important, but we don't have much control over those, okay? So this is like, as far as what I think is probably the most important this is kind of our max capacity as a coach. We get them the results first, yes. The art of buy-in is not about buy-in. I hate that word, that phrase. It's about trust. And getting the most out of your athletes is about them trusting that you have their best intentions in mind and that you care about them more than just an Instagram video showing off their mad skills. Okay? It's not about attracting the best athletes. It's about cultivating excellence inside and outside of the gym in our youth. Okay? So that love part is me telling my kids, literally being a sap every single day, because it's cool to have Grindhaus gym, all black walls, black equipment, black everything. I'm on my Johnny Cash thing right now, okay? So we're all black everything. We play the dirtiest freaking rap music, and we slang the chalk around like it's nobody's business. But damn it, that doesn't mean anything. And my kids won't stick around when the next gym shows up like that down the street if they don't think that Grindhaus is their tribe. They start to see you as the chief when they trust and know that you love them with your entire heart. I tell every one of my kids before they leave, I love them to death. I didn't think I was going to cry, man. I love my kids to death. I'd go to war for them and they'd go to war for me because there's that mutual understanding there, and it doesn't take them long to figure that out. We build that trust through results. But how many of you guys know it takes a couple weeks to literally just to test again to see those results? What do you do in the interim to get that trust? Well, I'm big on being transparent with my kids and being vulnerable. Telling them my hang-ups as a man, my hang-ups as the things that I've dealt with, my own testimony, the things that I know that they're dealing with. I dealt with the same problem in a different way, whether it's, sex addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Even maybe things that aren't where I want them to be in my marriage. I'm very open with my kids. And guess what? They're the same way back to me. That's what you want. If we want to have this position of leadership with our kids, we don't show up telling them what to do first day and expect them to just do it because we wear a shirt that says coach on it. You have to cultivate that pedestal from which you speak. You actually have to grow that position and work your way into that position in their lives because they only have so many available spots. Okay? In my experience, it hasn't really taken very long, but this is something that I think that I attribute this stuff to my upbringing, my family. I came from a really good one. I have a wonderful wife and a baby that loves me, and I love them back. But these kids don't always have the same thing. And even if they have parents that are together, they have other holes in their lives that are going to get filled with things that you know better than, like you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. They'll try to fill those holes by any means necessary because how many of you guys know that 16-year-olds don't know what's best for them? So I think as strength coaches, it's our duty to think outside of those things. And yeah, reading science practice of strength training and super training, those things are fun. I'm freaking highlighting super training like it's freaking Romans 6, okay, and just getting after that thing every day. But don't neglect developing yourself as a leader and as a father figure and trying to be the best husband and boyfriend, fiance that you can possibly be so that stuff shines through to your kids because they don't have a ton of people displaying and manifesting the things that you preach in their life. Bring your wife around. Bring your girlfriend around. Show them how it's done. And don't be afraid of those awkward conversations when my kids think, because I'm 27, they think they're going to get a pat on the back when they tell me, what they did over the weekend. And I was like, dude, you're talking to the wrong guy, man. I don't shy away from telling them what's up. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It absolutely is. Because I know what I was doing at 16 years old. But it's my responsibility to still say it. you know. I'm not crying. You guys are crying.
You have a question, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry to bring you guys down. It's just I felt this conviction, man. I'm sorry, dude. I gotta act on it. What's up? Yo, is it you guys first or that?
What? This one.
Okay, yeah.
Do you do any sprint work, and if so, how often?
Yeah, so we do sprints on lower body days. Again, high-low model. I want them doing their most CNS intensive things on the fewest days possible, and I rope it all in. It ends up being a long period, being a long session because we got to get everything in. But we sprint them, we flat load it. The total volume is dependent on where they're at in their season, in-season, off-season, preseason, and what we're trying to accomplish. We use variations of sprints, different modes of resistance. I don't contrast with my young kids, I do with my older ones. And we're breaking time records every 2 weeks typically. If they beat one, 1 week, a lot of times I'll see like a regression the following one. God knows why. It's like the body's like, it's almost like tapped out, like it's like, man, that's the most I can do. You asked me to do it again, and so it's not linear, but typically when they have a bad week, they bounce back. Unless it's super cold, my athletes, they hate the cold. I think it's actually more of a mental thing than anything. They hurt. But we sprint twice a week. That is year round, depending on what their sport is. Okay? So if they're a track athlete, I don't want to do more of what they're already doing. Okay? So we'll do other things to work those same qualities. I only have a maximum 40 yards of available space to even run on at my gym, and it's on asphalt. So we have to keep the volume low to keep, the wear and tear off the knees and stuff. But what I've found is you don't need a ton of repetitions at max effort sprinting, getting up to max velocity in order to drive it up, okay? Because we know the stuff in here makes it faster, okay? I do believe in sprint technique. I'm not the guru at it by any means necessary, but I know what shitty running looks like, and I know what good running looks like. Typically with my younger kids, it's a mobility issue. I should say it's a strength issue first, and how it looks is usually a mobility issue. Tight hips, too much Fortnite, okay? A lot of times it's like pecs are super tight from being in this hunched over student position all day in their desk, whatever. And we have to correct those things. When we do, it starts opening up over time.
You said you don't like to switch a lot with the younger athletes, right? You're a fan of accommodating resistance. Well, how often do you vary your accommodating resistance?
Yeah. Every kid's different. Every kid is totally different, and so I like waves that make sense in my head to keep things organized because I am inherently not a super organized person, and so we wave it. I like to cut it right before it stops working, and so the more variation they're using, again, it depends on the level of the athlete. With my beginners, they don't vary much for the first 6 months if they're true beginners. But after that, like I said, we vary things every 4 to 8 weeks. With my girls, my guys might do every 3 weeks because, again, personality types, they enjoy it. They like using the different bars. Typically, actually, really like, and this is kind of a brutally simple way of doing it. When a girl asks you, when are we going to use that bar? They're typically ready. Okay? I leave it up to them. Honestly, let's not overcomplicate things. When a girl's interested or curious about something, or one of my shyer male athletes does it, it means they're ready for it. They want to do it. There's that motivation behind it, and they get excited behind it. Okay? Assuming they've been in the main program for a while. So now that person might be asking more about my advanced athletes because I didn't talk much about that. How often do we vary the accommodating resistance? Was that what the question was? Yeah. Well, we'll change some variable every wave. So I like changing things on a monthly basis. 3 to 4 week schedule is usually good. It's a 3-week schedule if they're more powerful, need a deload. If they're not, we seldom deload, if at all. And it's really just I pay attention to my indicator kids, my kids that are just like my road dogs, these dudes that they show up every single day. They give maximum effort. They're just, they're my warriors. Those kids are the ones I pay attention to for what the group needs. Okay, so if those guys are getting worn down, then I deload the rest of the group. Okay, and that's just something I don't know. You got to keep things organized when they're still, again, when they're running off those templates, not really getting into individualized stuff yet. But I program for the majority or I begin there, and then I end with, the more specific stuff to the individual.
All right, any questions on the floor?
You guys talk about training kids, but what age is like the best age to start? What do you think is like the best age to start like weight training, like for your kids?
It's a great question. So my youngest is in 6th grade, but I don't think that's the earliest. Shoot, Jared just showed me a freaking 8-year-old that has a world record? National record?
Well, no, she's 10. She started when she's 8.
Okay.
The best athletes in the long term that I've seen over the years, one year I had to do one. I'm just speaking off of the Nike Open rating, whatever. Yeah, they changed it to Open or whatever, to where they went around to Miami, Chicago, New York, countrywide. The number 1 vertical jumper, the number 7 vertical jumper, and the number 9 vertical jump, and that class all came out of the gym. The number 1 and number 7 guys started when they were 8. The number 9 guy started when he was 9.
Mm-hmm.
I tried at 6. The best age by far, I think, to start someone at is 8.
That's what I was going to say as well. The ages are getting younger in my gym as they refer younger kids. Kids are closer in age. They might be a year younger, and just over time it's gotten younger and younger and younger. I truly believe that 8 years old, 9 years old is perfect. Those are like 4th, 5th graders. And the thing you have to be aware of is the maturity level, inherent with that age group. A lot of them can't handle the mental rigors of training, not working out, right? So I'm not that guy that sets up obstacle courses for his kids, but I certainly do a lot more to keep them moving, you know what I mean? And so those kids, I really like Jared's analogy about the wiring in the house. I say something similar typically when I'm explaining it to parents, but what I've found is that, the earlier, because their brains are so malleable at that age, if you can teach them perfect form, this comes from a background in Olympic weightlifting as well. If you can teach them perfect form, not worrying about the weights, because that's not the priority, you shouldn't be placing your importance on driving maxes at that age. But the more that you can, the more of those freeways in the brain, the pathways that you can widen up, increase the lanes. Like, I live in California, so it's like, I don't want my lanes looking like a freaking LA freeway, right? I want it looking like a Georgia freeway. You know what I'm saying? So not like 4 lanes, I need 6 lanes. And so the earlier we can do that, the better off they will be in the long run. And I don't have enough data on it. I've just learned from people who have done it before me, and have those years of experience taking kids through the program for 8 freaking years to see that those kids, I don't think you have to be born a freak. You can make a freak. Absolutely. We got to start them young. The more time you get with them, time is everything in this field.
Would you, like for that really, really young kid, like maybe even less than 8, would you do like a lot more like lighter versions of like strongman type of stuff, like simple as like carries?
Yes.
Work on their form, like in a free squat, maybe sled, stuff like that. So they're getting stronger. They don't want to have to think about it, but they're gonna, especially because they start usually playing this sport sometimes now as early as 5 or 6. But
Right.
at least you're getting them better prepared. And if they're playing like football, for instance, they could be getting hurt on the field. So at least if you're getting them stronger, and they're getting early introduction into the max effort, which is later to come.
Correct. So what you just said hit it on the head. I give them more movements that are brainless in nature, things they'd have to try to screw up. You know what I mean? So our weighted carries, our overhead stuff, our spatial movement, it's all just loaded in a way that's going to develop, you know, a lot of those kids are super weak in their upper backs. I love the carries for that. I love all the strongman implements that you hold in front of your body or overhead or whatever. The more weird and wacky it is, they like it. We can make it into races and stuff like that. Just any way that, you know, we can drive performance and still provide metrics that they want to beat every time, so that the intent's there. But in a way that, you know, we do a lot of med ball throws with those guys too, overhead and all that kind of stuff. I believe in all the stuff that includes, you know, the med ball throws are better than Olympic lifts, straight up. We do a lot of vertical, horizontal, over the head granny throws, that kind of stuff, to develop our power in our younger athletes that could never, they're years away from dynamic effort. You know what I mean? So the more brainless we can make it, if I tell them, hey, you're going to put that thing down to the ground and put it behind you as far as you can, how many kids you know that are going to get anxiety over that? You know? So I think that when it comes to them, their attention spans are so short anyways. Demand less from them, you know?